All right, we got the Unit 4 test review here. First question here tells us to do a translation of -8 and -6. Okay, a couple ways you can do that. You can use the graph and visually do that. You can make that movement happen, or you can go and take -8, -6, and add those to the corresponding x and y values. So I might do a couple points just to show you how here. So if you want to go and just add them, you literally add -8 to the x piece and then -6 to the y piece right there. So if you go and add those, a prime would be -6 after you add them, and then comma -1 right there. Now, visually, if you want to go and figure out where a prime is going to be here, -8 tells us to go left 8, and then -6 tells us to go down 6. So if we go and take this here, left 8 units, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then down 6 units, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A prime will be right there at -6, -1. And you can do that to each of the points there. And then once you do that, you'll be done. So I'll go ahead and do that here for the next few points. I'm going to visually do this here. So -6, or I'm sorry, what's that? -8. Yep, -8. And then -1 should be a point right there. You can do that with the -8. And then I think I said -1. I meant -6. Okay, I think that's about right there for D prime. And then you can do the same thing. And the shapes here when you do a translation should be congruent. So usually once you get one point, it's kind of easy to go and get the other points because it should be the same exact rectangle right there. So let's see here. That put B at -1, -1. C prime right there was at -1, -4. And I guess we forgot a blank here for D prime, so I'll go ahead and add that. D prime was at -6, -4. And that'll be it there for your translation. Next one's the same thing with some different numbers here. When you got a +3, that means go right 3, up 4. So I'm going to go ahead and take my points and visually do that. So what do we say? Right 3, 1, 2, 3, up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Put a point there. It's A prime, right 3, up 4. There's B prime. Right 3, up 4. There's C prime. And of course D prime has got to make that rectangle. So that will be it there on that. A prime was at 5 and 9. B prime was at 10, 9. And I'm just, don't forget you can just go add 3 and add 4 if that's easier for you. The next one was at 10, 6. And then D prime finally was at 5, 6 as well. Okay. Now, another thing here is dealing with translations here. This is a composition of translations where you have two of them. So the one's followed by the other. So all you're going to do here is take these x components, these horizontal components of right 12 and the left 13, you're going to add them. So 12 plus a -13 comes out to -1. So your new translation will be truly left 1 after you do them both. And then let's go get the 5 and then plus the 18. So that's right 5 and then right 18. That's going to be right, 23. And then you're doing that to, I guess, a point there. So you can say x comma y right there. And that's a single translation. Next one here, you can do the same thing. So let's go 2 plus 0. So that's going to be 2. You can do -5, -13. And that would get you -18. So that's that. Okay, next page here, capital R, the notation for that, is going to be a reflection across the y-axis. Typically, I like to do these here visually. But there's also some little rules on the formula chart that you can follow, so I'll talk about that as well. As far as visually here, you want to just go count how far away A is from the y-axis, which I'm counting 5 units. So then I'm going to go 5 additional units away. And then that's where my new A prime is going to be. So it's getting reflected across the y-axis. Same thing with B. B is 3 away from the y-axis on the other side, so then go to the opposite side, and there's your B prime. And then you can connect, and there's your segment there. And it looks like it's symmetrical across the y-axis. Now, another way you could also do this here, the y-axis rule says take your x comma y, and this says it on your formula chart. Since it's a reflection across the y-axis, you change the x value. It's the same y value, but then the x value is the opposite sign. And that's how you can also go get your points here. You can say it's okay. 5 right there, change the sign of 5, it's -5, and then comma 2, the y stays the same. Or this other one here, -3, so do the opposite, it'd be +3, and then -3. And then those would be your points right there. Okay. So that's it there on a reflection across the y-axis. Next one here, we'll do a reflection across the x-axis. It's pretty similar here, so here's your x-axis right there. A is 2 away from the x-axis, so A prime will also be 2 away from the x-axis. And then as far as B, B is 3 away, so then you can go put that right there, go line them up, and then you're good to go. All right, as far as your rule on the formula chart, if a reflection across the x-axis says keep the same x, change the y. The negative means flip the y sign right there. So if we were to write these down, this would be 5 comma -2. Which is what we got on our picture. And then I guess you would have -3 and then +3 for B prime. So there's a couple of other rules on the formula chart. They got one across the line y equals x. Now as far as what does the line y equals x look like, that is a diagonal line with a slope of 1, so up 1 over 1. And then I guess a slope of 1 through the point of 0. So really that's going to kind of make, a diagonal line kind of like this right here. So we're going to reflect across that line. Now with this one, it's kind of hard to count diagonally as far as coordinates over. So with this one here, I would actually use the rule. In my opinion, this will be the easiest way to do this here. So the rule tells us to swap x and y. It's going to become y comma x, which means swap your sign, or swap your order, I guess. So 5 comma 2 becomes 2 comma 5, and then -3 actually, that stays the same right there. You can't really swap the order because they're already the same. So when you go and plot those there, 2 comma 5, that's going to be about right there. There's A prime. And then B prime is going to be in the same spot since that's not changing. And then there's your new segment right there. And if you kind of tilt your head to the side, you can see how it's mirrored across that diagonal dotted line right there. So that's your reflection on that one. Okay, got a couple more here. Lowercase r, that's going to be a rotation right there. And there's a couple rules here for the rotation. To me, it's easiest to do the rotation rules here on these here. So trying to think here for 270, trying to remember off the top of my head, I don't have them all memorized here. I think this one here, you swap the order and then you change one of the signs. I think it's going to become the, let's see here, it's 1 4, it's going to be 4 -1. So it's the old x becomes negative. The old x here becomes a negative. So let's go ahead and try that out, and then I'll show you visually what that's going to look like here on this. So if you have 1 comma -2, I want you to underline your original x value right there. And then that's the thing that's going to have the sign change. So then I'm going to also swap the order. So it's going to be 2 -1, but instead of -1, change that sign to +1. So then that'll be 2 comma 1. Okay, we'll do that same thing here with the other points. So you got 5 comma 1, so swap the order, 1 comma 5, but then change the sign of the original x, which is 5, and change that to -5. Okay, let's try it out here on C prime. C prime swap the order, it's going to be 4 comma and then -1 right there. -1, meaning your value out there in front. Make sure you change that sign right there. So let's see kind of what that looks like here. You got 2 comma 1. There's A prime. 1 comma -5. There you go. There's B prime. And then 4 comma -1 right there. And that should be C prime. And then that is your rotation. That is a 270-degree rotation. Usually it's going to be around the origin right there, so you can put a point, you put 0 or O, I guess, right there for that. All right, so let's try out our other rotation rule. This one is 90 degrees. This rule here, you're going to take an X comma Y, and then you're going to swap the order again. It'll be Y comma X, but then it'll be the original Y is going to have the sign change. So like on the last one, we had the original X was the sign change. Now the original Y will have the sign change. So for this one here, if you have 1 comma or -1 comma 2, this will be 2 and then comma, and then you can do the -1, but the 2, the original Y, is going to be the one that changes. So it's a -2 and then -1. Then we're going to do that same thing there. So change the order, and then also swap the sign. -1 and then comma 5. Next one here, -4 comma 1. And then we can go and plot all those points there. So let's see here. -2, -1. Here's your A prime. -1 comma 5. There's your B prime. And then -4, 1. There's your C prime. And then go ahead and connect them all. So that'll be that right there. Moving along here, number 10. I think I got a dilation here. So capital D, that's a dilation. Dilations are rather easy because all you need to do here is multiply both X and Y by your scale factor, which in this case they're giving us a scale factor of 1/2. So I'm literally going to multiply everything here by 1/2. 1/2 times 2, 1/2 times 4, 1/2 times the other 2, and so on right there. So A prime will be -1 comma 2. It's basically half of those values. B prime will be 1 comma 4. And then C prime, -1 comma -3. So let's go ahead and plot those. -1, 2. 1 comma 4, and then -1 comma -3. And then there's your shape right there. So it's a smaller version right there. Let me go ahead and label everything, I guess. A prime, B prime, C prime, and then you're good to go right there. All right. I think we got 1 or 2 more here. What's this next one? All right, next one here. You got a scale factor this time of 4, so everything's going to get times by 4. So this one here will be negative, what would that be? -8 comma 4. B prime would be 8 comma 4. And then C prime, that'll be -8, -4. -8 comma 4, plot a point there. 8 comma 4. And then -8, -4. And then there's your, points right there. Oops, I don't know why I put a 4 right there. That should be B prime. And then that'll be it right there.